This episode is sponsored by the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. January entertainment includes fan favorite Umphrey's McGee on the 18th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Umphrey's McGee rocks the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia on Saturday, January 18th. I spoke with keyboardist Joel Cummins about forming the band in South Bend, Indiana, where their band manager appeared in the movie Rudy before getting their band name from Rodney Dangerfield and even recording music for ESPN's Around the Horn. Hey, Joel Cummins. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure, Jason. Great to be here.
We are talking because your band, Umphrey's McGee, is going to be coming to the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia on January 18th. So everybody get your tickets now. And so we're calling this the Cruising Altitude Tour. What's in the name? Is that the upcoming album name or something else altogether?
We're flying high into 2025, Jason.
So we're flying high into cruising altitude. All right. So tease the set list a little bit. And we don't have to spoil the whole thing, but is it going to be mostly stuff from Asking for a Friend, which I guess came out, in 2022, but or is it anything new you're teasing?
Asking for a Friend did come out in 2022, but one of the things that our fans really like about Umphrey's McGee, we've probably got about 250 original tunes that are in the live rotation. So this is in the midst of a big winter tour for us, and we'll go out for 4 or 5 nights and not repeat a song. So you definitely will hear a couple songs from Asking for a Friend, and you're going to hear some newer stuff as well that we've been working on, and plenty of classics that fans love. And we also like to throw in a couple covers here and there. So it could be anything from Africa by Toto to And Justice for All by Metallica to Reelin' in the Years by Steely Dan. We have a pretty wide variety of sounds that Umphrey's McGee is known for, and I think that's another thing that our fans really like. We kind of have a chameleonic presence up there on stage, where we could be in the middle of a kind of dancey jam, and then all of a sudden it's a stop cue to heavy guitars. So we have a lot of fun, and just like to create in the moment and take our fans along for the ride.
That's quite the gamut you just listed of the covers, Reelin' in the Years, Steely Dan, ranging to Metallica, that's wild. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, you're dropping these other band names, so let me go ahead and ask, when you all were growing up, what were some of the bands you think that influenced you guys? I'm talking before it even formed in 97 in South Bend, Indiana. We'll get to that in a second, how you met the guys, but just with you growing up, so what were you listening to?
I'm actually from outside of Chicago, and the band started in South Bend, Indiana when we were in school at Notre Dame. Before that, I grew up in suburban Chicago, and in LaGrange, Illinois, there was a place called Beautiful Day Records. And my friends and I would ride our bikes over there every Saturday. And back then, it was kind of the advent of the tape era when I was in junior high school. So records they were selling them for $1.99, and I got the entire Led Zeppelin discography. I got the entire Queen discography. Those were probably my first 2 big rock bands that I really love, and still to this day, two that I really love. The Beatles kind of came a little later in high school, and the Stones too. Being a keyboard player, I grew up listening to. I loved Stevie Wonder, and I loved from Chicago Ramsey Lewis and Herbie Hancock, and guys like Billy Joel and Bruce Hornsby were all over the radio, so they were very big for me, and of course Elton John. So those were a lot of the things that were in my rotation, and then in high school I kind of got into Metallica and Def Leppard and Motley Crue. That was Guns N' Roses, kind of the butt rock era there. And at the same time, I was playing and studying classical piano, so I really had a wide, and also I should mention also singing a lot in choral groups. So I had a pretty huge range of things that I was listening to, which is kind of reflected in the Humphreys catalog, like we were talking about.
Oh, totally, totally. And thanks for, yes, as you mentioned, you met the other guys at Notre Dame, your lead vocalist and guitarist, Brendan Bayliss. Wasn't his dad like a tennis coach or something at Notre Dame? Is that why he chose to go there?
So yes, his dad was not only the tennis coach there, but is the winningest NCAA men's tennis coach in history.
Well, there
So
you go.
yeah, so he's a pretty well-known guy, and has written a book and stuff. And but it's kind of a funny story. My best friend and I, we've been best and still best friends to this day. Been best friends since like sixth grade, and we decided in high school that we would apply to all the same colleges and then figure out where we were going from there. So we were kind of similar in our class, and I applied to Duke, Penn, and Notre Dame. I got I got waitlisted at Duke, I got rejected at Penn, and Notre Dame was the only one that we both got into. So that was my decision making process about why I went to Notre Dame. And then I had the pretty rare experience of studying music and getting a degree in music theory with a concentration in piano performance at Notre Dame. So there were only like, five or six music majors in each class. So it was a very, very low professor to student ratio, which I suppose was probably helpful.
Exactly. So then I assume then I just reshared my Sean Astin interview the other day. But I assume Rudy was big once you attended the school. Were you a big Rudy fan?
So my freshman year is when that came out, and they had a private showing. I was a member of the Notre Dame men's choir, the men's glee club, and they had a private showing for a bunch of the clubs at a theater, and I mean it was amazing. It was one of the coolest things ever. And fun little factoid there, in the film when Sean Astin is playing for his high school football team, our manager Vince Iwinski was an extra in that, and so he has a couple seconds on the screen sitting right behind him during a motivational speech.
Well, there you go, folks. We had no idea that Humphreys McGee's band manager is actually in Rudy on screen. That's great. But hey, see, I don't need to tell you, but yes, you know as well as me, one of the most inspirational movies of all time. I just freaking love that thing.
No doubt, no
uh,
doubt.
awesome. Well, what other? I'm trying to think some other South Bend, Indiana reference. Oh, of course, Mayor Pete, right? That's the big claim to fame to South Bend now. Has he ever come across the band?
We've written with him a little bit, and we haven't gotten him out to a show, but he's also a keyboard player, so I'm certainly optimistic that at some point we're gonna get him to walk on stage and sit in with us. That would be pretty
Really?
epic.
Now,
Uh,
what do you mean by you've written with him? Like you've written songs with Pete Buttigieg?
no, 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 just written messages.
Oh, messages. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think we had some emails a few years ago that went back and forth. But yeah, Mayor Pete, in case he stumbles across this, he is always welcome at an Humphreys McGee show and can hop up and sit in. We also had a kind of a legend in the DC and New York area. If you're familiar with the Around the Horn show on
Of
ESPN.
course.
Tony Reale has sat in with us before.
Really?
Those guys have all kind of become friends and fans. Pablo Torre and Kevin Blackistone came out too with them, so that was kind of fun to experience that. And they've invited us out. We provided the theme song for them for a number of years, so we would go and watch their tapings whenever we were in DC, which was pretty cool.
That's wild. Now, was this? I by the way, I go way. I remember. Well, I've never met Tony Reale. I'm going on Tony Kornheiser's show in a couple days to talk
Oh,
awards
cool.
movie. But I've never met Reale. But I remember him back when he was Stat Boy on PTI.
Right,
Remember
right.
before, right when Round the Horn started? I guess they would go back to back in this time slots. But when he does
Yeah.
the paper toss, does it hit you in the face and mess up your rhythm on the keys?
Yeah, yeah. He definitely when we were in the studio, he's definitely trying to throw him at us. So uh, but it was pretty funny because he came up and we did Layla, I think, with him, the
Nice.
Derek and the Dominoes tune,
Yeah, classic.
and he confessed to me he was like, "Oh my God," he's like, "That was the most nervous I've ever been in my life." And I'm like, "Dude, you go on TV for millions of people." He's like, "Yeah, but they're not all right there, like screaming at you." Yeah,
Yeah, well, we mentioned Rudy, but Goodfellas has the best use of Layla, man. That when
oh,
the
no
piano
doubt,
outro of the, dun,
no doubt,
dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
impossible to not think of that every time we
yeah.
play it.
A
Such
montage of murders to that song. It's beautiful.
no
But
doubt.
but
Yeah.
real quick, so all right, so Tony was in reality was nervous playing that with you, but remind us how the actual theme to Around the Horn came together. Like, were you the original theme, or a couple years into the show?
So a couple years into the show, they wanted to redo it and kind of have a little bit more of like a little bit more of a rock and loose vibe. So
Yeah.
the producer of the show was actually the fan of the band that kind of got in touch with us, and that's how we got connected with the program. So
Right.
so we did some of their bumper music and stuff too, but it was pretty cool. I think it was on for about 5 years, and we had a lot of people that they would ask me, be like, "Oh, I'm Freeze McGee. I've heard that. How have I heard of that?" And so, a lot of time it would come up from that, which was pretty neat.
From Around the Horn on ESPN. Well, it's funny you meant you're kind of joking, but it's true. Like the name Umphreys McGee, when you hear it, it just kind of lodges in your brain. You're not gonna forget it. So we have to tell everybody. And the question probably you've answered a million times, but for the sake of posterity on this podcast, where did the name come from?
So back in 1998, at like our second show or third show, we were playing. I think it was at Club 23. It might have been Madison Oyster Bar, but Rodney Dangerfield showed up, and
Really?
apparently he had an aunt or something. He had some relatives that were in South Bend, and so being the jovial and probably slightly buzzed guy that he is, we tried to tell him, what our name was, and what came out was something close to Humphreys McGee, and so that was kind of how we stuck with it. And it's been commemorated. We had somebody draw a nice painting of us with Rodney back in about 2012. With him in the middle and all of our faces surrounding him. So, nice to have something to commemorate that. But yeah, that's how it came together.
He gets no respect until
No
Humphreys
response.
McGee.
Yeah.
um,
Thanks,
well,
Rob.
man, you all have, from the band name to everything else for names of your albums, you always have cool titles for stuff because I love that your first album was called Greatest Hits Volume 3.
Here's a good quick little anecdote about that one. We printed up 1,000 copies of that using a company called Disc Makers. So anybody who remembers back in the 90s, that was kind of the
Yes,
way to do
I
it
remember it. I remember it. Yeah.
when you weren't on a label. And so, we just sent them out to every press person that we could find. And, you know, one of them ended up in Germany somewhere. And we got this email from Germany, and they were like, so I should explain this first. Greatest Hits Volume 3, we put our 8 songs on the back and then created fictitious albums from which these songs came from. So, so this guy wrote us and said, we love the Greatest Hits album, but we can't seem to find any of the other albums that these are coming
Where's
from.
the first two?
Yeah, can you help us? Can you help us find these other releases? And we're like, oh wow, it took an international connection, but our joke worked.
It's
Um,
That's freaking genius.
so
Well, that's
for
awesome.
those of you guys listening who don't know us, just know that we love to throw a great party. It's kind of inspired, very 70s rock and roll vibe, kind of the Pink Floyd or Rush stuff. You'll hear some musicianship, but I think you'll also do a lot of dancing. We've got a great production and light show and sound and everything, and we just like to have a good time up there. So if you like to go out and have a good time and kind of forget about whatever it is out in the world that is bugging you, come join us for 3 hours and we'll have some fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember when you all came to the Frederick Fairgrounds here. That's where we're recording this in Frederick, Maryland. During COVID, when everything was shut down, they brought
Right.
bands in at the fairgrounds. And Umphrey's McGee, my wife was with Showtime Sound, so they booked you all, and I think it sold pretty well. So
It did. That was cool. I enjoyed that one.
absolutely. But anyway, so everybody come out to see Umphrey's McGee at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia on January 18th. You won't want to miss it. Joel, keyboardist Joel Cummins. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Jason, appreciate your time.
Thanks again. We kind of ping ponged from Rudy to Metallica to Banger Pete to Around the Horn, but it was still fun.
I love it. I love it. That's great.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Jason, have a good one.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.